Hello friends, it's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, and in this week's video we're going to do some more seasonal foods that we ate this week from things that we're growing on the homestead or things that we're experimenting with here. We're going to make some dairy-free mozzarella cheese, and then we're going to use that on some pizzas that we're going to cook outside on the grill. And then we're going to harvest some elderflowers. I'm going to make an elderflower syrup that we're going to turn into an ice cream. And we're also going to make a homemade ranch dressing. But the first thing I want to do is harvest some garlic scapes. It's that time of year. If you don't know what a scape is, it is the flower stalk of hardneck garlic plants. Softneck varieties of garlic will not produce these scapes, but hardneck varieties will. And like I said, the scape is the flower stalk, and you can chop it up and use it in many dishes to give it a very mild garlic flavor. It's not quite as strong as the bulb of the plant, but it does give a garlic flavor that's absolutely delicious. And so we always enjoy this time of year. Now, in past years, I've done many videos on some ways that we preserve these. I've done pickled garlic scapes and shown you that process many times. We've also dried these into a powder to make a garlic scape powder. That's wonderful. And I also love to make pesto out of these, and we've frozen that pesto before. So I will link videos that show those processes for you in the video description. We're going to do something different in this video, but I need to get all of the scapes first. And I have some of these bunches of, I call it my perennial garlic. As I have planted garlic every year, sometimes I toss random bulbs that don't look great out into the junk woods here, or they end up in various spots around the garden, and I just let those go and don't harvest the garlic bulbs every year, and that little patch gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So we do harvest the scapes from that area, and I leave the bulbs underground to continue to grow. So it's always a nice surprise to pull to see how many scapes we have growing out in this area of the wooded area. It's nice to be able to harvest more scapes from there. So this is what we got. This wasn't all of them. I left some on the plants that looked like they were still a little small and were growing. And these are the mature scapes that I wanted to deal with today. And so like I said, I'm not going to be canning these or drying them. This year, what I want to do is chop them into little pieces, and we're going to freeze those. I'm not going to blanch them first. We're just going to freeze them raw. And my goal for these is to wait until my basil plants are big enough to harvest basil for pesto. And then I can thaw packages of these scapes to add to my basil to make pesto later on. Or I can thaw a package of this and add it to stir fry. It's delicious like that. Or if I decide in the future I'm out of garlic powder, I could also toss these into the freeze dryer to make powder later on. So like I said, I'm not blanching these before I freeze them, but I am going to vacuum seal them, and that will just keep them fresh for as long as possible. So I just portioned them out into an amount that I thought would be good for a batch of pesto, and we're going to get those in the freezer. And then I left a lot of them fresh in the fridge that we'll be eating in some of our meals throughout the rest of the next couple of weeks. The next project this week was to make some dairy-free cheese, and this is the recipe book that I am using to do this. I had bought some macadamia nuts from Azure Standard specifically for this purpose, and we've been snacking on them, so I knew I needed to make this cheese before we run out of the macadamia nuts. So it's really simple. We started by soaking our macadamia nuts. I'm doubling the recipe, so I did 2 cups of the nuts, and you can see that overnight they swelled up with the water and softened a bit. And I drained those, and to it I'm going to add some unsweetened, unflavored almond milk yogurt. I typically don't purchase this, but I bought it specifically for this recipe. And then I'm going to add arrowroot powder as my thickener. I'm adding a little bit of avocado oil, and then we're going to add nutritional yeast. I did 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast to give that cheesy flavor, a teaspoon of salt, and then a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Then we're also going to add 1 clove of garlic, and we're going to mix all of that together. Now, I am making substitutions. The arrowroot was an approved substitution in the book, but this recipe called for agar powder, and that is not something I keep in my house, and I don't want to purchase an extra ingredient for this. I do have beef gelatin powder in the house, and I read online that you can substitute one for one. Using this, it's just going to affect the way that it melts. So I went ahead and added 2 tablespoons of beef gelatin powder, and we're going to see how it turns out. So once I have it mixed as thoroughly as I think I can get it here with my immersion blender, we went ahead and threw that in a pan on the stove, and we're going to heat this up to sort of get that gelatin to activate. Also, the arrowroot powder needs to be heated, and then those things, once they're heated and then they cool down later on, will help to thicken this and gel it, kind of in the same way we use our arrowroot powder for like pie filling and things, and in the same way the gelatin would be used for Jello. So we have it heated up to the point that I'm satisfied with. I'm pouring it into these silicone molds from Super Cubes. I think that that will help get them out a little bit easier. You can use the kind of bend the silicone a little bit to get it to come out. It spent a day in the fridge, and then this is what it looked like. So we do have to change our expectations when it comes to dairy-free cheese. We are not going to get the same result as we would with a dairy-based cheese. And this was a first try, so we're going to see how it is. The texture of it reminds me of something like tofu. It's very spongy and soft. So I don't know if that is the beef gelatin, and if I would have used the agar powder, if it would have firmed up a little bit more, but it's definitely more like a soft cheese, and it was extremely difficult to cut through. But I haven't had mozzarella in so long, so I don't really remember what it's probably been 15 years since I've seen mozzarella cheese like this. I don't remember what it's like to cut through, but this was the texture that it was like for here. And so I think this would make an amazing spreadable cheese, almost like a cream cheese. I will say that the flavor is amazing in this. You can definitely taste the nutritional yeast. It's delicious. So we're going to go ahead and make some pizzas and see how it goes on there. So I'm going to link my pizza dough recipe in the video description. Here's a quick screenshot of it. This is the easiest pizza dough. I make this all the time. I'm tripling it on this day so we have enough dough for my whole family, and I added garlic powder and oregano to the dough. And then I'm just going to get it in my Bosch mixer and let it knead the dough for me. I love my handy little appliances that save me so much time and energy. I'm very grateful for them. And once it was kneaded by the machine, I could take it out, and I always like to finish it by hand just to make sure that I get it to the desired texture. It was extremely warm this week, up to maybe 85 degrees on several days, so I was trying to keep the heat out of the kitchen, and so we are going to use our green egg cooker here and the pizza stone that we have that goes with it to make these pizzas. But first I needed to grab a couple pints of pizza sauce. This is home canned pizza sauce that I made in a video for you a couple months ago, and I'm so grateful to have these conveniently canned up. It just saved me some time and not having to make my sauce on this day. But I did need to cut up some of our toppings that Miss Hannah here is sneaking. But just a little variety of different toppings. We're going to do personal pan pizzas on this day. I cooked up some Italian sausage, and then of course we have the cheese, and it's just much easier to let everybody, when we have this many people in the house, it's much easier to let everybody kind of make their own pizza versus trying to just make several large ones that will make everybody happy. And the children love this. It's just something fun for them to do, to pick out their toppings and make their own little pizza. It was just a really nice day. Adam was home from work, and so we were able to kind of do this as a family and make some fun memories. So I was very excited to see how the dairy-free cheese would do on these pizzas, and I am happy to say that it turned out great. I was worried that they would just kind of melt into nothing, and they didn't. It stayed firm enough. If anything, and I think it's because we cooked these on the grill that we didn't get enough heat from the top. I'm wondering how these would have done in my oven inside of the house if maybe it would have kind of browned the cheese a little bit more on the top. But overall, it did get a little melty, and it was a creamy texture that, like I said, was delicious. And the kids said they would eat it again. So we have tried store-bought dairy-free cheeses before, and we were just really not satisfied with them. Now, in terms of texture, they do melt a little more like dairy cheeses, but they're full of some kind of weird ingredients that we don't necessarily love, and just don't seem to be worth it for what you pay for them in the store versus what you get out of it. It just has never seemed necessary. But if I can make it out of ingredients that I have in the house that are maybe a little bit healthier, I don't mind making this for the children. And they loved it. So we'll be saving the rest of our macadamia nuts to experiment with other types of cheeses. And the rest of the cheese that we didn't use on the pizzas this week, I went ahead and made some homemade bagels, and we spread it out like cream cheese, and that was also really delicious. So this was really versatile, and I might experiment with the agar powder sometime just to see if it gives a different texture. But I absolutely would recommend using the beef gelatin if that's something you have in the house and you wanted to try using, because everybody was satisfied with the results that had tried that on their pizza. So you guys know that I don't eat gluten, so everybody always asks, what do I eat on days like this when we're making pizza for the children? And typically what I will do is make myself a salad, and then I will use the sausage and all of the veggie toppings and things like that to make my own little pizza salad. But I tried a new salad recipe from my friend Crystal at Homestead, and I will link her YouTube channel in the description if you want to check her out. She's amazing. And I tried out her homemade ranch dressing recipe this week, and I really loved it. So it was mayonnaise and mustard, salt, and Italian seasoning. And then I added some red wine vinegar. I don't know if you guys will remember, I made a batch of red wine vinegar for a video a long time ago. This was like leftover red wine that I used for cooking that had kind of been in my cupboard for a while. So I just threw an apple cider vinegar, mother of vinegar, in the jar with the wine, and it turned out amazing. And so I decided to use that in this dressing. And my goal is to use up that red wine vinegar in my dressings this summer because I've been having salads quite often. So we did add a little bit of sugar also, and then I'm going to use avocado oil for this dressing. And we mixed it all together, and it did have a lovely ranch flavor. I really enjoyed it. Ranch dressing is something that I miss since we're not unable to have dairy due to my son's allergy. And this tasted enough like ranch to kind of fill that desire to have ranch dressing on a salad every now and then. So we will definitely be making this again, and I am grateful for Crystal for sharing her recipe. She shared it on Instagram last week, and I thought I would try it out. And I'll bring you more salad dressing recipes over the next couple of weeks because we have tons of salad or lettuce growing in the garden. So I've been eating salads pretty much with every meal in some way, shape, or form. And so typically for meals, I'll just eat the meat and the veggies and the salad and leave the carbohydrates for the rest of the family. Something else that is in bloom this time of year are our elderflowers. So this is the flower of the elderberry. If you've heard of things like elderberry syrup, this is what the flower looks like, and you guys have to smell this sometime in your lifetime. It is the most fragrant, beautiful smell. It reminds me of summer, and this elderflower tree, this elderberry tree, grows in one of our chicken runs, and the birds typically don't let us get any of the berries. They eat them all before we get to them. So I always try to harvest some of the flowers before it becomes berries, just so we can enjoy something from the tree before the birds eat it all. So we got our little basket of elderflowers. In the past, I've made jelly out of that. I've made elderflower cordial, which is like a drink that you can add to carbonated water that is just delicious. It smells like summer. Today, we are going to make an elderflower syrup, and then I'm going to make ice cream out of it. So the first thing we want to do is really wash those flowers well, because there can be all sorts of bugs and dirt and things on them. And then I'm going to remove the actual petals from the stems. We don't want to use the stems, just the fragrant flowers. And I have my nice pot here full of them. They smell, it just smells like sunshine. We are going to add a quart of water to the pot, and then I'm going to add 4 cups of sugar. And then elderflowers pair really well with a lemon flavor or also honey. We did 1/4 a cup of lemon juice. You could also add some lemon zest here if you wanted to, lemon extract, or even just whole lemons if you wanted to. But we're going to stir this up and get it on the stove and bring it to a boil. And after I let it boil for just a couple minutes, then I removed it from the heat, and then I let those elderflowers sit in that syrup solution for a full 24 hours before I strained them out. That really helped infuse the syrup with the flower flavor. Next thing we're going to do is take a couple cans of this organic coconut cream, and I'm going to pour it into my elderflower syrup. And I'm also going to add a few eggs. This will help thicken up my ice cream. And then we're going to pour this into our ice cream machine after we blend it all really thoroughly. And just like with the dairy-free cheeses, when you make homemade dairy-free ice cream, I feel like you have to change your expectation. It's not going to be as creamy and thick as a regular dairy-based ice cream unless you add all sorts of strange ingredients and thickeners and things. But it does make a delicious, refreshing ice cream-like treat if you just expect it to be something different. And my kids rarely have dairy-based ice cream. Obviously, my allergic son never has it, but the other kids have had dairy-based ice cream outside of the house before. But this is what they're used to, and they love it. It has a strong coconut flavor, but the elderflower syrup just added an extra something special to that this week, and we were really excited to make that and enjoy those elderflowers. It's a special time of year. We only really get to do that this time of year. Other than that, we've just been busy with school and life as a large family. This week, I completely potty trained Miss Hannah, which occupied a whole lot of my time, and I'm grateful to have that task out of the way. We also spent a lot of time catching up on some house maintenance. You guys know I was pregnant and had terrible morning sickness through last summer, so a lot of the house projects that we wanted to do didn't get accomplished because Adam was filling in for me as Mr. Mom while I was sick, and his time, he just wasn't able to use his time during the summer to accomplish a lot of these projects. So we're doing a lot of painting and fixing of things that we didn't get to last summer. I'm working on digging myself out of the hole I got my garden into last year. All of the weeds went to seed in my neglect and just not being able to care for the garden during my pregnancy. And so all of those weeds that went to seed are now coming up this year, and I've got a good manage on most of the actual garden beds, but my pathways are a mess. And so I'm not aiming for perfection this year. I don't need my garden to be picture perfect. I just want it to be productive and to feed my family well. So I'm just kind of taking it one step at a time. It's like my canning challenge that I do every August. Every bit counts, and that's how I look at it. It's like every pathway that I can get cleared is one more cleared pathway. Every bed that I can get weed-free is just one step closer to having a weed-free garden. And I'm just looking at the garden in these little chunks. It's like they say, how do you eat an elephant? You do it one bite at a time. And so that's where a lot of my extra time has gone to lately, is just kind of working in the garden. And I love that. It's so peaceful. Another thing that we love this time of year is just spending time outside as a family, enjoying the property, playing sports, being outside on the deck, and just enjoying God's creation. So I hope you enjoyed this little peek into our life this week. It was a wonderful week. We had great weather, and we were able to accomplish a lot. I'm going to be back next week with another peek at what we're eating seasonally, what is coming in from the garden. I'm excited. We have some summer crops starting to flower, so pretty soon we're going to have like tomatoes and cucumbers and things. So check that out in the coming weeks. I hope your week is blessed, and we will see you next week, friends. Bye.